Hey, what's going on, guys? I really appreciate you guys taking the time to click on this video and listen to my story. I just want to preface this video a little bit for you guys. What you're about to see is one continuous, raw, uncut clip of me doing the best I can to tell you my story. So that being said, there are going to be times where I'm telling some really personal details and I need just a second to compose myself and get my mind back on track. So just be aware of that as you're watching this video. Like I said, it's completely raw. It was all done in one take. But I really appreciate you guys watching this video, and let's get to it. What's going on, YouTube? Today's video is going to be a little bit different than normal. I've been debating whether or not to share some of my personal story with you guys, but I feel like it's about time, because eventually it's going to come out anyways. So today we're going to talk about why you should never give up. And I'm going to try my best to illustrate that through a personal story of mine. Rewind back all the way to 2011. I'm an 18-year-old kid just graduating high school. Up until that point, I had been a above average athlete, excelling in both track and field and soccer. Given the background that I came from, if I was going to go to college, it would have to be completely funded through an athletic scholarship. I wasn't going to be getting any sort of, academic scholarship. I was not an academically inclined student. I knew it was going to have to be through sports. But given the fact that I was an above average athlete in both of those sports, I figured, hey, there's no problem. I'm for sure going to be able to get there. Well, 18 years old came, reality set in, and the fact of the matter is, unless you are just an absolute world-class athlete in one of those two sports, track and field and soccer, there's not a lot of athletic scholarship money to go around, at least in comparison to, say, football or basketball. Because those are the sports that really make institutions, a lot of money. A lot of schools will actually lose money funding the other athletic programs that they have. When I say this took a toll on me, when this realization set in that, we were 2 to 3 months away from, what would have been the first semester of college for me, and I wasn't going anywhere. I didn't even have any legitimate offers from anywhere. I had a couple partial offers for soccer, a couple partial offers for track and field, but I would have been going so far into student loan debt that to me it just didn't make sense, because I didn't want to graduate college and be $100,000 in debt just so I could, live out my dream of playing another couple years of soccer or running track and field or something like that. To me, it just wasn't worth it. So that was very, very difficult to set in. And for, about a few months, I went into a really deep depression. I would go out every single night and just run, or sometimes I would bike anywhere between 10 to 20 miles. And it was just 100% fueled by anger and sadness and resentment and maybe even a little bit of rage. I just would cry and cry and cry and cry out to God and ask him why. I thought for sure I knew that this was what I was supposed to do. My entire life leading up to this, I just always knew I was supposed to go play sports in college. That's what I knew that was going to happen. And up until that point, it just didn't seem like it was going to happen. Well, one night, I was crying in my room, just like I had been doing for the past few months. Just at this point, I had just completely given up. I was feeling sorry for myself. I was in a very deep, dark hole. And my dad came in, and he was like, Andrew, I have a plan. I have an idea, and I want you to hear me out. And at that point, I had nothing left. I had no options. I had no, ideas in the back of my mind. And I was like, yeah, sure, let's hear him out. And he said, I think that you should go back to school, to the local community college that was in my town. I think you should get good grades. And I think that you should start training to be a football kicker. And if you guys remember from earlier in the video, I didn't play football in high school. my younger brother John had been a kicker all through high school, and he achieved great success. Actually got a full ride scholarship to Liberty University, where he played all 4 years and had a small stint in the NFL. Very, very successful college kicker and professional. And I was like, Dad, I never played college football before, or I never played football before. How the heck am I supposed to catch up to achieve the level, to where I could play in college? And second of all, what coach is going to take a kid seriously who's asking, hey, will you give me a scholarship to come play for you, but I have no experience playing college football or playing football in general? It just didn't make any sense to me. But for some strange reason, I decided to swallow my pride and trust my dad and trust the process of his plan. So I did. And for the next year and a half, I trained every single weekend, sometimes twice a week, with the coach who trained my younger brother John, Brandon Kornblue. And it was very rocky in the beginning. I will say that I definitely had the power. I had the natural strength to be a good kicker because of my background in soccer and really just my background in strength training and athletics in general. But that coach saw something in me that probably one of the same things that my dad saw in me. He just saw just the ability and the drive and the work ethic and the willingness to give it 100%. So for the next year and a half, I worked full-time. I went to school part-time, and I trained as full-time as possible to become a college kicker. And I must have emailed, I'm not exaggerating when I say this, I must have emailed over 1,000 coaches simply asking for a tryout. How I did that was I went to ncaa.org and I literally made an Excel spreadsheet of every single Division I college coach and their email and their contact. Not necessarily always the head coach, just any coach that I could get contact information with. And I went to Division II, did the exact same thing. Went to Division III, did the exact same thing. Went to NAIA, did the exact same thing. Junior college, did the exact same thing. So now you can see how easily this came up to be over 1,000 coaches. And I emailed, and I called, and I texted, I left voicemails. I did absolutely everything I could, just hoping for one person to respond to me. And it must have been, I don't know, a couple weeks, and nothing happened. And then through one of those, times of me reaching out, a school responded. And they were actually in my home state of Florida, which was great. And I got a tryout. And the guy was like, hey, if you want to make the drive up here, we're having a workout during this time, you can come with our guys and you can, kick and, you can show us what you got and, we'll just, we'll see what happens. Because I think their kicker had just gotten injured or something like that. So they were basically kind of desperate at that point. Probably the only reason they emailed me back. So I think 2 days later, I'm in the car with my mom and we're driving up to this university. And I went out there, just as raw and as nervous as could be. And I went out there and I kicked. And I had one of the best kicking days of my life. I had one of the best punting days of my life. I just absolutely crushed it. And the coaches were very impressed. And I wound up getting a full tuition scholarship to attend that school. And it was just one of the greatest feelings ever of 2 years of working, of hoping, of praying, of doubting, and then having good days and bad days, and it just finally happened. So I signed a full scholarship to Weber International University, an NAIA program in Babson Park, Florida. By all appearances, I was living the dream. I had done it. I had, hey, quit that. By all appearances, I had done it. I had achieved what I set out to achieve. So halfway through the first season at Weber International University, I was driving to football practice. I was riding a motorcycle, and was going about 65 miles an hour. We were on a highway, so I wasn't speeding or anything, doing stupid like that. And another driver did not see me and pulled out in front of me, and I hit their car going 65 miles an hour. I hit right where the tire is on the passenger side of the front of her car. So basically, they pulled out in front of me, I was coming this way, and I hit, and me and my motorcycle went up and over the car, flipping. I remember the entire thing. I remember, the whole life flashing before your eyes thing is real. In that split second, I probably remembered every single memory that my brain has in its storage. And I went flipping and flipping and flipping. I remember hitting the ground and rolling and just feeling like a rag doll. Just no control over what was happening. And eventually I stopped rolling. I was still in the middle of the highway, and adrenaline kicked in because there were still cars coming, so I had to actually immediately get up from that run off the highway where I actually collapsed in a ditch next to the highway. And from there, I laid there until the paramedics came. And adrenaline was going, and I was completely numb, and so I had absolutely no feeling over really anywhere in my body. And I just remember lying there. A bunch of people who saw the accident, came over to help me and to see if there was anything that I could do. And the woman who hit me was, absolutely losing her mind. She thought that she had killed me because I was just lying there motionless on the side of the road. And so I'm lying there, and the paramedics come, and I remember the paramedic standing over me, or kneeling over me, and I was wearing jeans, I was wearing, a hoodie, I actually even had gloves on, so as far as road rash goes, I had almost none. Was wearing a helmet too, which was the main thing, because the first thing to hit the ground when I was flipping was my head. So that probably saved my life for sure. I remember the paramedics standing over me or kneeling over me, and they used like their fancy cutters or whatever to remove all the clothing from my body so they could really see like what was going on. And I remember when he cut my jeans, his face went from this to this, and he immediately goes into his little microphone or walkie-talkie type deal and says this is bad, make sure that there's an emergency room bed open when we get there, essentially. Because we were actually only about 7 minutes away from the nearest hospital, which was very fortunate. And then he immediately proceeds to, get real close to my face and say, "Hey, don't worry, man, you're going to be all right. Everything's going to be okay." And if a paramedic goes like this, when he sees your wounds, and then immediately proceeds to tell you that everything's going to be okay, it's probably a pretty serious situation. So we get in the ambulance, I get stretchered, we go to the emergency room where I start to really kind of try and take a peek at my legs. What had happened was the right handlebar of my motorcycle had punctured through my right knee, and the left handlebar had punctured through my left knee. So I was sitting on top of the motorcycle, and when I hit the car, my body slid forward, and the handlebars, which were right there, just literally went through my legs. And I had some other, cuts and lacerations on my legs as well, but these puncture wounds on my knees were real. So I had emergency surgery that night to basically do everything that they could do. Got out of the surgery, and so this has been about 2 days later now, and I'm sitting there, lying there in my hospital bed, and I still can't feel my legs. Basically, the sensation of feeling stopped basically after maybe this far below my waist. Basically from about this far above my knees all the way down, there was nothing. Couldn't bend my knee, couldn't wiggle my toes, couldn't do anything. And the doctor told me that this was probably because I had severe nerve damage done, where when the handlebars had gone through, they had actually cut some of the nerves in my knees. which could be affecting why I don't have the feeling of sensation, the further down you get. And I was like, well, what does all this mean? And my dad was standing on my left, and my girlfriend at the time, she's actually my wife now, was standing on my right. And he gave me a very serious look, and he said, it could mean that you're going to be paralyzed. And to me, that basically just in one ear and out the other, just complete shock. I was just like, there's no way. Like, I'm not going to be paralyzed. Like, I'm invincible. I'm Superman. I'm only 19 years old. Like, are you kidding me? But sure enough, left the hospital, went home, and I spent the next few months basically moving from my bed to the couch, to the bed, to the couch, to the bed, to the couch, because I couldn't really do much else. Couldn't really do any walking. Anywhere that I did go, I had to be helped. I was, wheelchaired around for a little bit. I actually needed help showering because I couldn't stand. Crazy parts of my life. So from there, we started the physical therapy process, learning how to walk again, learning how to, just do those like basic functions. Throughout this entire time, obviously, because of the severity of the accident, I was prescribed painkillers. And the painkillers ruined me physically and mentally and emotionally, honestly. I was hallucinating. I was seeing people that weren't there. I was having complete blackouts where for an hour during the day, I just would have no recollection of what was going on, what I had said. My family would be like, oh, you said this the other day, or you did this yesterday. It was really weird. And I was like, I just wouldn't remember any of it. I was crying all the time. I was just mad at God. I was mad at life. I was mad at everybody around me. I was just like, how could I have worked this hard? How could I have had this unbelievable success story just for literally a few months later for it to all be taken away from me? And not just be taken away from me, I felt like my life was taken away from me. Because it wasn't just football. From where I was sitting, it looked like I wasn't ever going to be able to run again. It looked like I wasn't ever going to be able to exercise again, at least not my legs. And, being an athlete, those are the money makers. So, give me a minute. But from there, I just continued to do the physical therapy, continued to do the rehab. I had mentioned a girlfriend previously. The two of us stayed together. We began to grow closer, and I realized that this was the woman that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. And so it was July of 2014, and I am 1 week away from proposing to this woman. And we were actually going to go take a trip to the Florida Keys, and during that vacation, I was going to propose to her. So we're about a week away from leaving for the Keys, and I'm actually doing some physical therapy stuff in my bedroom, and I get a phone call, and it's from a college football coach, and he says, "Hey Andrew, how are you?" And I'm like, "Good." And he's like, "Long story short, we need a kicker. We're a Division II school. I believe they were in South Carolina. We're a Division II school. We can fully scholarship you, but I need you to get on a plane in the next 2 days so you can be here in time for, preseason, fall training camp to start." So as if that isn't just absolutely crazy enough as it is, I turned him down. I said, "Thank you very much, Coach, but I'm actually a week away from proposing to my girlfriend. And for whatever reason, even though that was my dream, even though football was the dream, I just knew that asking this woman to spend the rest of her life with me and making that commitment to her was, was more important. And that did not go over well with that coach. I'm sure he was expecting a much different answer. So he began to, yell and curse and get upset. And I just was like, well, I'm going to go unless you have anything constructive to say. So hung up. And the bad part is I couldn't even tell Jeanette is her name. I couldn't even tell Jeanette that about what had happened, because if I had told the coach that I had turned him down, she wanted to know why, and I wasn't going to tell her, oh, because I'm proposing to you in a week. She didn't even know I had the ring. So I had to hide that from her. But it was in that moment, after I hung up the phone on that conversation, that I just heard a voice. And the voice was God. And God told me, I'm not done with you yet. If you think that playing football at an NAIA school was big, just wait. And I was like, okay, all right. I trusted you before. I'm going to trust you now. Let's do it. So a week goes by. She says yes. And then from there, I'm able to tell her, oh, hey, by the way, I turned down a full ride football scholarship to make sure that this happened. And she was like, what? Like, you should have just gone. I would have understood. Like, I would have said yes anyways, all that good stuff. But I told her, I said, I think that God gave me this confidence because I'm meant for bigger and better things. So, like I said, I've been doing the physical therapy, the rehab all the way up until that point, and I pretty much regained all physical strength in my legs. I called up my coach, the one who had trained me before, and I said, hey, I think I can still do this. I think I'm ready to give it another shot. And he was like, wait, what? You can even do this kind of stuff again? And I was like, I don't know, but I know that, as far as being able to run and cut and put, weight on all my legs and all that kind of stuff, I know that's back. So let's try kicking again. And so went back out and, definitely was starting from a much further back point than initially, but started training with him again, started kicking again, started progressing again, and achieved a really good form that we felt like was good enough to, put some film together of kicking in competitions and whatnot and send it out to some schools. And so we sent out the entire, not 1,000 coaches this time, but we sent it out to probably at least 100 or more schools, and got a call back from Indiana State University. And long story short, I wound up receiving a full ride scholarship to play football at Indiana State University, which is a Division I program in the Missouri Valley Football Conference. And I played for 3 years there. I had my school completely paid for. I graduated with no student debt. I got an accounting degree. Now I have a great job working as an accountant, making fine money. And my wife came up there with me. She had actually already graduated, and she had a nursing degree, so she was able to work as a nurse the entire time up there. But what I really want to drive home is, if I had given up at any point during that process, at any point, not only would I not have been able to play football at either institution, but I wouldn't be the person that I am today. I wouldn't have experienced anything that I've experienced today. My life would have been on a completely different path. If I had given up after the 998th time that I emailed a coach and didn't get a response, I never would have gotten that first opportunity to play football, which set me up for the next opportunity to play football. There's no such thing as luck, guys. There is a such thing as creating your own luck. I failed 999 times before I succeeded on the 1,000th time and got a call back and got my first tryout. Don't ever give up, guys. You have no idea what one decision can set you up for, good or bad. There's never any reason to give up, guys. Never any reason to give up. The world can be against you. Your girlfriend can leave you. Your job can fire you. A woman can hit you while you're driving on your motorcycle and completely take away your ability to walk for 6 months. But don't you ever give up. Don't you ever give up. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you on the next video.